Grand opening, grand closing.
Welcome, my friends, my family, my fellow gamers. Your only friend is YouTube Streets Puerto77, back with another video. I know it's been a while. I'm back at home. We're gonna get the podcast going this Tuesday, right? Let's talk about a topic, and the topic is this from it's Alex. Today, he posted, or I think it was yesterday, he posted, I've been anti-exclusive since the 90s. There isn't a single good reason from a customer perspective to have a product arbitrarily locked behind a plastic device simply because the logo is different, right? So if you follow Alex, he's absolutely anti-exclusive of any form for any reason. He feels every game should be on every device, and the consumer can make it more about the device rather than the games. Pick the device that you want, whether it's ease of comfort, portability, accessibility of PCs and configurations, or a locked environment that, has a closed environment for whatever the reason, whatever you like. Let it be about that and not about the games. And just pretty much make it a hardware conversation, a hardware configuration conversation, right? And not a games conversation. Now, for the most part, the way he described it in this sense, right? In a simplified sense, he's partially right? But I replied with something for a perspective that I think has been lost in the gaming conversation, in the gaming community, right? So my reply was this, right? And I'll put it up. I said this to his reply. Day and date multiplat is a disadvantage for a console, which isn't good for the consumer of that console. So my point is, day and date multiplat, meaning you take a game, right? And that game is going to be a multiplat game across all devices. That is a disadvantage for the console itself. And therefore, whoever owns that console is a disadvantage for them. Now, that's mainly attracting to the first party, right? But before that, let's go through some of the replies in my comment section, and you're going to see no one really addresses the point I'm making. Again, my point is day and date multiplat is a disadvantage for a console. That means for that specific console and device, right? And therefore, whoever is the consumer. So for example, a day and date multiplat for Xbox is a disadvantage for Xbox. A day and date multiplat for PlayStation consoles is a disadvantage for PlayStation. A multiplat for Switch is a disadvantage for Switch. And therefore, each of the consumers of those specific devices is not an advantage for them in any way, right? But let's look at some of the replies just so you can see some people really just talk to talk and don't really address what's being said. First up, right here. Mando, he says, there's absolutely nothing about exclusive content in any medium that is good for consumers. A disadvantage to a console does not equal not good for consumers. Gaming is the only medium where content is locked behind specific hardware. Phones, TVs, and everything else is not like this. Well, this is the first problem with Mando. You pretty much don't understand gaming then, right? The difference between gaming and another entertainment medium like movies and music is movies and music aren't made for a specific device. They're just made within the parameters of the movie, and then all the devices can just play that, right? A movie doesn't have to be like, what's the specs of an LG? And we have to, modify whatever. It doesn't work that way. Games can be made to the specifications of whatever. Take, for example, Black Myth Wukong. It is still not on Xbox because the developers are having issues with a particular device, the Xbox Series S. Right? Movies don't go through with that. Movies don't be like, oh, snap, you're going to watch this movie on an iPhone? Yeah, we're not going to be able to make a movie for devices. That's not a thing, right? Games have to cater to devices. Specs of devices have to be catered to. I mean, if you ever, or if any gamer ever said, cross-gen gaming needs to die, we need to move on from last-gen hardware, then you are admitting that games are being made to specs of hardware. Okay, because if it was really open to what he was saying, right? If your point is gaming is the only medium where content's locked behind, none of the content that they make today is unable to be seen from TVs 10 years ago. You can have a 2009 TV and you can still watch a show from 2024, and nobody in TV says, oh, we have to move on from 2009 TVs. Am I right? You see, so it's a different conversation. Don't use movies and music for this, right? Because I could get an old CD player, right? Burn the music on a CD, play that song. I could play a new song today on an old CD player, right? So no one says move on from technology, but we're doing gaming. So if you ever said move on from cross-gen, you agree that is a completely different landscape because you have to cater to the hardware and stuff like that, right? So he didn't really address the point. He just deferred and deflected to a whole new medium, and Mando didn't really understand what he was talking about. Again, TVs from 2005 can watch programming today because it's just a different landscape, right? Let's see another reply. And you're going to see a lot of people don't get it. If PlayStation goes first day for PC but continues to make consoles, you can choose your consoles on looks, features, and powers. I just replied I wouldn't choose a console anymore because it would be pointless. But I'm going to explain. You kind of see my explanation being passed there, right? You as a consumer aren't affected if a game is multiplat. The only reason you think that is because you have more exclusive bragging rights. So this is the people who love to use ad hominem and just whatever. Again, he didn't address the point. There is an effect. And I will explain that. It's actually here, but I'm going to explain to you guys anyway. This guy, the buff nerd. No, it's not. You just don't like the other people can play the same games that you can, in turn giving you no bragging rights on this app. But who gives a damn? Are you kidding me? It ain't about the app. It's actual facts. But I'll say, wrong. If it's a disadvantage of the console, then it just proves that the console doesn't have a valid reason to exist, unless it's maliciously holding games hostage just to keep relevance. Also, it's a pro for consumers to be able to get everything on all platforms. So, all he's doing is just talking shit. What he's trying to do is, he's trying to flip the conversation to see if I could defend the existence of the console and not address the point. All he did was, well, if that's the case, consoles suck. Okay, fine, consoles suck. Now what? Well, now what, Corey? My argument wasn't the point about the existence of console. I just made a point that if a game's a day one multiplat, it is a disadvantage of a console. Now, if you feel, well, then, if that's the case, then consoles just suck, then consoles suck. What now, Corey? What now? Consoles suck then, fine. What now? What's your new argument? See? So, not a good argument in his case. All right? Another one. No, it's not. It doesn't disadvantage you in any way, shape, or form. All it does is mean more people can play it. Again, someone that still doesn't know. All right. So multiple people in this thread does not address my point. None. I don't think they're even capable of even understanding. The smart ones, though, they actually said, can you explain what you mean? Everyone in the thread that did that, you guys are the smart one. Because instead of jumping up, throwing useless points, and just saying stuff without actually understanding the point I was trying to say, you know, you guys actually are really like, okay, let me see your perspective. Explain. Now I'm going to explain live on here. First, let's talk about multi-platform development and exclusive development, right? Okay, from a multi-platform point, we'll use The Witcher 4 that's upcoming for the PlayStation, right? CD Projekt Red does not own a platform. None of the platforms are theirs. PC, Xbox, PlayStation, doesn't matter, right? They're going to make a game for all platforms. That way, they have the highest possibility of sales, get the most amount of gamers access and stuff like that. I understand that point. That point is not hard. But the point you have to understand is CD Projekt Red can do that because they're not interested in any particular device. The success of the device is none of their business. Sure, they would love to see PlayStation obviously be successful. They would love to see Xbox be absolutely successful. And of course, they would love to see more people on PC gaming. They would love that because that's just more foundation for them to be successful. But the fact that Xbox, let's say, is not doing too on a console, you think they're having a heart attack over that? No, not really. It is what it is. If PlayStation's beating the bricks out of Xbox, CD Projekt Red doesn't really have a dog in this fight unless Xbox gets to the point where it's absolutely useless. That's the only worst case scenario. But for the most part, they're making a game for every platform. Because they're making a game for every platform, look at the things they have to do. Number one, they're going to have a budget and a time of when this game needs to be released. They're not going to give Witcher 10 years to accommodate every platform to make sure it is absolutely perfect on every device. No. They're going to make the game within the 5-year parameters that they have to. Within that 5-year parameter, let's start with PC. They have to cater to AMD hard configurations. They have to consider NVIDIA with DLSS, AMD with SSR, and all that stuff, right? And they're going to try to make the best product they can within all that, right? And Intel processors, AMD processors, they're going to do their best, right? For that group. Then for the Xbox group, right, you got the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, and they use FSR, so they're going to try to dibble-dabble on that, try to make it the best possible, whatever. They're going to have to go through and figure out around the constraints of the Xbox Series S. They're going to have to go through that hurdle. Okay, they're challenging that. And then on PlayStation, now you got the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. Potentially, they'll probably do PSSR if they can, or they might just stick with FSR out blank, because Xbox using FSR, PlayStation has FSR. It's probably just easier for them if they just go with FSR, whatever. And they'll do whatever they can, they do with that. And they're generally going to make a good product for all of them, period. Now, let's look at the PlayStation fan base. What is most likely the PlayStation fan base not going to get? Well, chances are CD Projekt Red may not, for the base PS5, dabble in to the extra performance modes that PlayStation 5 can do. You know, the high frame rate and VRR modes that when combined, you could get locked 40% in VRR HFR modes. We've seen in Spider-Man, we've seen in God of War, we've seen in Horizon Zero Dawn, we've seen a lot of PlayStation first-party games where they give you extra performance options. CD Projekt Red may not just go there because they may not be interested in that, because they may not have the time for that. They might just give PlayStation gamers the basic fidelity performance mode. Pretty much the common, theme to get 60 frames. All these extra modes that the PlayStation 5 can do, is capable of doing, you may not get because they may not have the time to do all that work. They got to get this game out for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. CD Projekt Red just be like, granted, PS5 has all these capabilities, but it's not really our mission to exploit every capability the PlayStation 5 has. It's not their job. Their job, hey, we're going to make a good game for PlayStation. Here's a good game. Okay. It is what it is, right? Exclusives, on the other hand, let's say like Sony's first-party exclusives, right? They're going to try to exploit every single capability possible, and they have 4 to 5 years just focusing on this console. For example, Naughty Dog, Intergalactic. So far, the game's been in development for 4 years, and this is the only platform they've been working on, the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. Chances are they're going to exploit every single thing about it. For the PS5 Pro, they're going to exploit every single capability the PSR can bring to the table. These are some of the advantages of exclusive development you can get as a console owner. Let's go look at Xbox and see how they look this gen, right? Ever since they went with this multi-platform strategy in 2019, that's when they made the decision to put everything on Steam day one. Can you honestly say that decision has not impacted Xbox? Can you honestly say the quality control and how they release games and stuff like that has not kind of like tinkered downward? Take, for example, the difference between the Xbox Series consoles and the PlayStation 5 consoles. They both have VRR. In fact, Xbox Series console had it first. It launched with VRR, and it launched with high frame rate mode. Sony added VRR later on, like a year later or so, okay? But despite the gap of PlayStation 5 receiving VRR, updated later on, Sony pushed ahead way ahead of Xbox of capitalizing on that technology to provide better performance modes for better FPS and stuff like that, right? You get locked 40%, and 40 FPS in some modes. In some games, you have unlocked modes where they just let the system just go with what it does, and you get like 60 frames and stuff, and VR balance it out. You get a lot more frames with these modes. Xbox has not delved deep into these processes. They have not decided to say, hey, across our first-party games, we're going to take advantage of VR plus high frame mode to provide additional modes for our games, so that way the users of this console can get better frame rates. No, if anything, they have relegated back. They actually are cool with telling Xbox console gamers, you're going to be playing some games at 30 FPS. Right? And you might get a 60 FPS performance mode later on down the line. They actually are going backwards. You see what I'm saying? This is what happens when you have multi-platform development. See, it's fine for the third party to be multi-platform development. They don't introduce or own any console. They're not selling anybody a specific device. They are just specifically selling games, and they want their games everywhere. But when you buy a device, right, from a particular first party publisher or company, you are giving that company money, and you should be expecting them to provide you the best experience possible because it's their device. Microsoft, who makes the Xbox console, and people pay Microsoft, here's $500, here's $300 for the Series X, whatever. It is on Microsoft, it's on them, nobody else, to provide the best experience and to maximize the potential of what that console can do, because it is their console. And as long as Microsoft does day one multiplat, especially with PlayStation, they're not going to exploit that console. It's just not possible. It's not enough time, especially if the games have to be made in 4 to 5 years, and now you add 2 more platforms. Think about it. If you make one game for one device in 5 years, and now you're told, whoa, stop. You're also going to make it for PC with all these configurations. Oh yeah, and you're also going to make it for the PlayStation 5, and you have to at least meet the minimum requirements for enhanced PS5 Pro. But you still only get 5 years. You're telling me they have time to exploit everything on the Xbox console? No. They're going to make a good game on the Xbox console, so you'll get a good, well-run game, a good, well-run game on PlayStation, and a good run game on PC, hopefully. Because there are times we've seen developers, they're not well optimized across the board on any device. So sometimes developers go multi-plat, and the game's just not well optimized on any device. And then it just takes months and months of patches. You see what I'm saying? So this conversation about exclusives, right? Sure, don't let the console war and the shit talking on the internet make us forget what exclusives have done, right? Perfect example, and some of us lived through it, the PlayStation 3 gen. A lot of the multiplats was not running good. Sony made a terrible decision creating the cell processor, right? So the multiplats is what they were, right? But yet the exclusives, especially from Sony's first party, and not just from Sony's first party, because you could look at Kojima and Metal Gear Solid 4. They showed what the PlayStation 3 can do. From a graphical, from a performance, they were top notch. But they can do that because they were only focused on the PlayStation 3, and the time allotted to release a game, which at the time was about 2-3 years, maybe 4 max, but around 2-3 years. Those 2-3 years, or let's say 3 years, right? Those 3 years, you were focused on that console, nothing else. There was no other consideration. There was no consideration for PC. There was no consideration for the Xbox 360. It was straight up PlayStation 3. That's what exclusive did. And if it wasn't for those exclusives, let's all be honest. If it wasn't for those exclusives, PlayStation 3 would have not ended in the good note that it was. Imagine if that generation, when PlayStation 3 started out, we all saw what was happening. $600, things was a mess, the sales was a mess, PlayStation was losing exclusives, games that were exclusive became multiplats. Imagine if Sony decided within the first 2 years, like, you know what? We have to make profit somehow and fix profitability like now. So we're going to put our first party games day and day on PC. And now Naughty Dog and all those developers, they were making games for PS3 and 360. Multiplats. How would that turn out? It would have not turned out well. Because PC and PS3 with any platform was challenging. All the developers said that. It was a very challenging. In fact, one developer, Criterion, who made Burnout, they said the reason why their game ran so well on PS3 is because they built it for PS3 first, and then it was easier to port it to 360 and PC. And there's articles on there. They actually talked about that and said and advised the industry, don't build your games on PC and 360 first. Build it for PS3, right? Work on that, get that running good, and then port it to 360 and PC, and it's much easier. Much easier, and then all three will be well run because, Burnout was one of the few multiplats that actually ran well on every device. And they said the secret, build the PS3 first, then port it, and then you'll be fine. It was just a challenging time. You know, imagine if Sony would have just been like, all right, we're going full multiplayer on PC. One, that decision alone would have just told people, yeah, I'm not getting a PS3. The console's junk, the multiplats are bad, and I'm going to get the games anywhere on PC. We wouldn't have a PS4. PS4 wouldn't exist. There wouldn't be a PS4. There wouldn't be a PS4. And then on top of that, the network shut down. That would have been the last generation of PS3. Everybody would just be like, this console's not good. The multiplat's not good. And then the one thing it does have, the exclusives, right, is on PC. Yeah, this console's done. You understand? The exclusives saved that console because as the exclusives was coming, especially they were running great, winning Game of the Years, Uncharted, The Last of Us, Infamous. It was just hitting a stride. Killzone 2, it was just hitting a stride. The graphics were great. The performance was great. But it was the exclusives. Metal Gear Solid 4, Little Big Planet, all those exclusives running well, beautifully. Graphically, 30 frames, whatever, and stuff like that. Those games gave people be like, all right, PlayStation's back. They're back to the games. Let's keep this going. It's already proof, right? What's happening is, as more games are getting multiplat, everybody's forgetting, the advantages of the exclusive for a console. But it's funny because you can see not 360, but Xbox Series is suffering from that. The fact that it has no exclusives, right? You see a lot of things going on. Number one, people don't even feel Xbox even cares about the console anymore. Right? That's number one. Number two, you don't see Microsoft pushing console technology anymore. A lot of people are expecting, some type of hardware announcement for, the game show. That's what they're like, oh, they're going to announce something. No announcement for hardware. No mid-gen refresh to try to give a taste of next generation technology. That's not there either. Right? They're talking about some developers within the first part talking about juicy 30 frames per second. Very minimal modes for enhanced performance. If at best, just the basic fidelity and performance mode and not much beyond that, right? People are questioning what is going on with Microsoft. Ever since this, multi-plat day and day strategy with PC, it's gone down the shitter. And it's even worse with PlayStation now added to that. It just got even worse. People were, all right, kind of tinkering with, okay, PC's fine, it's Windows. But now with PlayStation, it's all off the rails. All right. A lot of people are questioning Microsoft's commitment to the device, and rightfully so. Because if you buy that device, you are giving Microsoft more money. Why are you giving Microsoft more money for a device if they're not committed to the device? And commitment is through games and through technology. It's not just simply, we're going to release a hardware and here we go, we're going to contest on the hardware. That's actually not a good advantage for consoles either. And the reason why I will explain this easily is because console hardware is locked. It's 2024. PlayStation 5, the base PlayStation 5, right now today, did not sell over the course of November, Black Friday, and it is not selling over the course of Christmas because of hardware configuration. No one cares about the specs of the base PS5. That phase is over. That's not a contention. No one's saying, I'm buying, PlayStation 5 because of the smart shift and the magic of the SSD. No one cares about the actual specs of the PS5. It's old. It got released in 2020. It's old. That's not a conversation. The conversation is the games. What games is on PS5? Oh, PS5 got this game. PS5 got that game. PS5s are getting these games. Oh, Wolverine's coming out. Oh, man, you heard X-Men's coming out. All these games that's PlayStation centric is attracting people to that console. Because the majority of the games is on Xbox. If you look at the third party, and some of the biggest third parties, period, the Fortnite, Call of Duty, Warzone, Apex, Valorant, and, Rainbow Six Siege, Roblox, they're all on Xbox. So if it was just simply all about that, then there shouldn't be this huge, mega huge disparity between the two platforms. There is a huge disparity between PlayStation and Xbox, despite they share the majority of the biggest games in the industry. Period. Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex, the biggest games. They're both on the same platform. Madden, college football, hell, even MLB The Show. Most of the games are the same on both platforms. But there is a huge disparity of sales of PlayStation and Xbox, and it's shifted, right? And it's because of those big marketed exclusives. The Spider-Mans, the God of Wars, Horizon Zero Dawns, they're all over the billboards. They play a factor in getting the name out there. It's just simple, right? And some of those games are the best representation of the console. They push technologies that most multiplats don't simply push. Why? Because those games are made for the console, built for the console, and the developer has the time to take advantage of what that console can do. So when you make a game multiplat, day one, you pretty much not going to have the time to take advantage of every single aspect of all the devices. It's just not possible, right? It really just comes down to making a generally good, well-optimized game as best you can. But again, third party can do that because no third party told you, buy a PlayStation. That's not their responsibility. The devices you choose is not the responsibility of EA, Activision. Well, not Activision, right? Because Xbox, but even then, it doesn't even sound like it. But, EA, Capcom, and stuff. Those developers just get what you want. They're going to do the best they can for every device that they release on. That's it. So, what do we learn? Day and date multiplat is a disadvantage for console. Now, if you feel, well, if that's the case, consoles just suck ass, then they suck ass. I don't know what to tell you. That's just how it is. If you think consoles garbage and that's the only to be relevant and you feel then they shouldn't be relevant at all, then it is what it is. It doesn't matter. I'm just telling you right now, for the console, day and day multiplat is a disadvantage for the console. Most of the time, I'll give you one more example, right? Because I know I was closing it out. There is a reason why to this day, Rockstar does not do day and day multiplat with PC. Because they know it is challenging and they want their game to be at its absolute peak per platform. So they're going to do the best they can, right? They're already taking 6-7 years to make the game and they're only going to release it day and date on console. And the game's been in development, 6-7 years? 6-7 years. And you can't get the PC day and date. It's strictly console. Then after they release, and here's the crazy part, they release it on console and the multiplayer won't even be available that day. It probably won't be unlocked till like a month later, right? So the console will be released. Then they're going to wait a month. And they're probably seeing that because during those days of the game being sold, they're gauging how many people are owning that. Probably to get the servers ready, right? Then the online begins. And then like a year later, maybe a year and a half, depending on the window, the PC version releases. They take their time because they know the game has to be peak. Has to be the best that it can be. And Rockstar knows they can't do that with all platforms at the same time, with the online at the same time, day and day. They know they can't do that. With as much people, they're probably the biggest development studio, period, in the industry, and they get the most time to make their games. They get 6-7 years to make a game. They get thousands of people on their staff, and they get the most money to make this game, and even they won't even go day and date across everything with online all across the board. They stagger it. Console, a month later, activate the online, wait a year or so, release it on PC. They take their time, they try to get the quality, and that's why these Gran Turismo 6 games, they come out peak. There's no argument about that, okay? So, that's my point, and no one really countered it, okay? Now, again, if my point leads you to believe then consoles just suck ass and they're bad for gaming, that's a whole different conversation. It's a whole different point, okay? If you don't like consoles, oh well, then you probably already are on PC and you talk shit about consoles anyway. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, you let me know what you think. Hit up the comment section. It's good to be back. So many topics from the Game Awards, more talk, Tim Dog's out there and stuff like that. I'll see if I could get him on the podcast on Tuesday. I'm going to hit him up. But hey, you guys have a great Sunday or, great whatever day you are in whatever part of the world. We will see you Tuesday. 60 Frames Don't Like Podcast, 8:30 p.m. And anyway, your only friend is YouTube Street Puerto Rock 77. And I'm out of here. You guys take care. Peace.